I want the people to see this for themselves. I like to say, and I was born in Chicago in Illinois, but deep in my heart, I'm from Missouri, which is the show me state. So I want people to see this for themselves. So what I didn't know until recently, until this gentleman T-Bone helped me out and went through the entire Aleppo Codex line by line, and he found in 1 Kings 8:11, it also has the full vowels. And there, I love what it says there. It says, Ki maleh kivod Yehovah et beit Yehovah. For the glory of Yehovah fills the house of Yehovah. Now the second time it says Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, it doesn't have the full vowels. It's unpronounceable technically. But the first time it does. And what happened was you had these scribes and they were copying letter by letter and then they put in the vowels and they knew they had to leave out one of the vowels to prevent people from speaking it. There was a group of movement of Karaite Jews specifically at that time in Eastern Persia who, unlike all other rabbinical and Karaite Jews, said, this one particular faction said, we must speak the name. So these scribes, when they copied it, said, well, we're not going to enable them. We're going to leave out one of the vowels to prevent them from pronouncing it, and even preventing an innocent person who maybe doesn't know about the ban on the name or forgets from accidentally pronouncing the name. So you come across it most places, it's unpronounceable, but here's one of the 6 places in the Aleppo Codex where it's definitively has the full vowels, Yehovah. Here's another one, 2 Kings 20, verse 9. And I love this. And this is actually it's kind of like one of those crossover episodes where like Batman shows up in Superman. So this is Isaiah in the Book of Kings. Right? It's like, what is Isaiah doing in the Book of Kings? It's like where Batman shows up in the Superman movie. Vayomer Yeshayahu zeh lecha ha'ot. And Isaiah says, this is for you the sign. Me'et Yehovah, from Yehovah. And there Yehovah has the full vowels. And I have to wonder, as the scribe is copying this and he knows he needs to leave out the vowel so those troublemaker Karaites don't pronounce it or other people don't pronounce it, and something in him puts that dot in there. And it's beautiful. It's amazing. Now, I've had people say, well, okay, that's just 2 manuscripts, the Leningrad and the Aleppo. Well, I've found it in over 50 manuscripts, and I'm going to jump ahead and share some of the other ones with the people. So the 6 most important manuscripts of the Bible, indisputably, when they print a Bible, they base it in the Aleppo Codex, but the Aleppo Codex has missing pages, so they compare it with 5 other Bibles. The Leningrad Codex, something called the British Library, or 4445, Cairo Codex of the Prophets, Damascus Crown, and Sassoon 1053. Those are the 6 key manuscripts of the Bible with vowels. They're all from the 9th and 10th century. The earliest one is the Cairo Codex of the Prophets from 895. The latest one is the Leningrad Codex, which is actually from 1008. It's the latest one of the group. And all 6 of them have the full vowels. Here it is in the Leningrad Codex, Leviticus 25:17. And I love the verse once again. Ki ani Yehovah Elohechem, for I am Yehovah your God, and you can't miss it. It has the full vowels. It says Yehovah. That's a fact. It's not an opinion. It's not a theory. It's not something someone had in a vision, and you know what? Maybe people have had visions. I've had people, write to me and say, well, but God personally told me his name is Yahuwashi. I can't argue with what God personally told you. Here it is in the manuscripts, the oracles of God. Or 4445 in the British Library, Leviticus 22:9, it says, Ani Yehovah Mekadsham, I am Yehovah who sanctifies them. And indisputably there, it's the full vowels. Cairo Codex of the Prophets, Ezekiel 7:14, again in Ezekiel, he says, Vidatem ki ani Yehovah, and you shall know that I am Yehovah. And I love this one in Damascus Crown, it's the Shema. In Deuteronomy 6:4. It's when they asked Yeshua, what's the most important commandment? And in the version, I believe in Mark, he says, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart. And here it says, Shema Yisrael, Yehovah Eloheinu, Yehovah Echad, Ve'ahavta et Yehovah Elohecha b'chol levavecha. And 3 times in a row, Yehovah has the full vowels.
Incredible.
Beautiful. Now, I could go through everyone. Here's the Sassoon 1053. I don't have time to go through all the manuscripts. I want to bring the highlights. And some of the highlights I have are special types of manuscripts. Now, the most accurate manuscript, even in ancient times, it was recognized that the most accurate manuscript of the Bible in existence was the Aleppo Codex, written by the master scribe Aaron ben Asher, completed in Tiberias in the year 924. it turns out we have 2 manuscripts written by Aaron ben Asher's father, which is significant because where do you think Aaron learned how to write Bibles? From his father, whose name was Moshe ben Asher, Moses ben Asher. Ben Asher wasn't the name of his father, meaning Ben means son, but that was the name of the family. So the Ben Asher family of scribes go back to around the year 600 AD at least. And so the father, Moshe ben Asher, wrote the Cairo Codex of the Prophets in the year 895, which I already showed, had the full vowels. What I recently learned is that there was a second Moshe ben Asher manuscript, which is in the Russian National Library in St. Petersburg, Russia. And that's the location where they have over 1,500 Bible manuscripts. Many of them, not all of them, but many of them are from this early period. And one of them, which is known as Ivrei 2, Ivrei means Hebrew manuscript, Ivrei 2, B188, meaning it's 188 out of 1,500. And that is from the year 908, also written by Moshe ben Asher, and it also has the full vowels. Now, what's really, really cool, Michael, is for years, I mean, since the 90s, when I was studying biblical, actually even in the 80s, back when I was in high school and I was studying about the Bible, and I wanted to know, where did our Bible come from? And I would read about the Ben Asher family back then in the 80s. I would sneak out of high school and go down to downtown Chicago to the Spertus College of Judaica and read these books about where we got our Bible. And it came from the Ben Asher family of scribes in Tiberias between around the year 600 and 1000. And the greatest of them was Ben Asher and his father Moshe ben Asher, and there were other ones. And I had read even back then in the 80s that there was a rival family of scribe called the Ben Naphtali family. So you had Ben Asher and Ben Naphtali. But Ben Naphtali, we don't have their manuscripts anymore. We only have Ben Asher. That's what I knew back from the 80s. That's what I knew even 6 months ago. And as I was researching this topic, and I want to back up, I shared in a previous episode about how I found 10 rabbis who say the name is Yehovah. And when I found that a few months ago, I decided I have 10 rabbis, but only at that time 5 manuscripts of the Bible with the full vowels. I said, I need to find 10 manuscripts of the Bible. And I thought, how will I do this? It's been 16 years since I discovered this. And in 16 years, I only knew about 5 manuscripts. And now I want to double that to 10. And what I didn't know is at the time I was doing this, there's a worldwide concerted effort to digitize all Hebrew manuscripts. So I was able to look at manuscripts that just a year ago I wouldn't have been able to see. And as I was delving through these manuscripts, I found 2 Ben Naphtali manuscripts. The rival family of scribes to Ben Asher. And you have to understand...
And these didn't exist as far as the scholar world was concerned.
They existed. I just didn't know about them, and maybe 2 or 3 people in the world knew about them. But if you could read the manual of Masoretic studies, and it will tell you they don't exist. What it will tell you is we have a list of what's called the differences between Ben Asher and Ben Naphtali. And so we know, for example, and I know this sounds very technical, but for example, when you have in the Bible the word to Israel, so in Ben Asher it will say Le Yisrael, and in Ben Naphtali it will write L'Israel. It's a contraction, like you say in English cannot and can't, right? So and those are some of the identifying characteristics of Ben Naphtali. And as far as I knew, that was just we only had the list of telling us the differences. And you can read the manuals on Masoretic studies, and it'll tell you, yeah, we don't have that anymore. Turns out 2 of the manuscripts have been identified that are Ben Naphtali manuscripts definitively. One of them is, again, from the Russian National Library. This one is Ivrei 2 B5. And the other one associated with Ben Naphtali is Ivrei 2 B63. And both of those are Ben Naphtali manuscripts, and both of them have the full vowels, Yehovah. So it's not only the Ben Asher family of scribes, it's their rivals who also knew that the name was Yehovah and occasionally put that in their manuscripts. They also were part of this, what I call the conspiracy of silence. They didn't want the Jewish multitude speaking this name. But in their head, they knew it. And as they copied, every once in a while, they put in those full vowels and show you it's Yehovah. And I got to say that, if it was a random dot, then you would have some places it would say Yehiva. In other places, it would say Yehovah. In other places, it would say Yahava. But it never says that. It's always Yehovah whenever they put in the full vowels. So, very cool stuff. Ben Asher, Ben Naphtali, and very, very recently I discovered the earliest dated manuscript that at least I've seen with my own eyes, which is, I mentioned the Cairo Codex of the Prophets from 894. Turns out there's one that's 1 year older from the year 894. And this is also from the Russian National Library, which has probably the greatest collection of Hebrew manuscripts in the world. And this is Ivray to B100. And B100, what's really fascinating about this is this was the personal Bible of a famous rabbi named Sadia Gaon. Sadia Gaon was the leading rabbi of the 9th and 10th century. He was actually literally the leading rabbi of the Jews of Babylon in the 10th century. And he had a famous dispute with one of the other rabbis, Ben Meir. But what he's really famous for in Jewish history is he wrote a book proving that the oral law is true and the Karaites are wrong. So he's known as the bane of the Karaites, the one who came up and stood up to the Karaites and theologically slaughtered them and defended rabbinical Judaism against those Karaites who were denying the oral law. That's what, say Sadia Gaon to any Orthodox Jew, and he'll say, oh yeah, the guy who refuted the Karaites. That's what he's known for. And we have his personal Bible, which is unbelievable. His personal Bible, it's dated to the year 894 when he was 12 years old. So he didn't copy this, but this was may have even been his bar mitzvah gift. Like, this is the Bible that he trained with, and we know that because it says it in the Bible. It says his name. And it has the full vowels, Yehovah. and the reason that's significant is Aaron ben Asher, the scribe from Tiberias, he was indisputably a Karaite. We know 100%. There's a question of whether his father was. His father may have been a rabbinite. We don't know for sure. But there's no question Aaron ben Asher that wrote the Aleppo Codex was a Karaite. The Cairo Codex of the Prophets is in the Karaite synagogue in Cairo today. I mean, that even to this day, that's where it is. And so the great opponent of the Karaite, his Bible also has Yehovah. So this isn't just some crazy Karaite thing. This is both Karaite scribes and the leading rabbinical leader of the 9th and 10th century has it in his Bible. So, I mean, these are two completely different witnesses that you can't argue, well, they were colluding to create some kind of lie. If one of them would have changed the Bible and written something that the other knew not to be true, he would have been called out on it. And they would have said, can you believe those Karaites? They changed the Bible and made it Yehovah, and really it's Yehuvuhu. But we don't find that. To find that, you'll have to go to Facebook. That doesn't exist in any Jewish sources.